Hi, Brigida Cook here. Um, I know that I have some fellow nursing mama friends out there, so I'm going to do an interview today with my friend Kaely Thompson, and she has been a NICU nurse for 12 years, and she started her own practice for lactation consulting, so she's done that for 5 years. She has three of her own children also, so she is going to share just some of her wisdom and tips, and she should be getting on now.
There we go.
Hi, Kaely.
Hi there. How are ya?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you.
All right. You too. Sorry. Sometimes I struggle technically. It takes me a few minutes to to figure this out.
No worries.
Yeah. So I just gave a quick intro, a little bit about you and your background, but I'd love to hear more of like how you got into became an IBCLC or a NICU nurse or passion for babies and nursing.
Awesome. Yeah, so as you explained, I'm a mom to three. They're getting old now. They grow up way too fast. They're 7, 9, and almost 11. And I had my own struggles as a new mom, figuring out breastfeeding, feeling really alone and isolated. And also at the time, I was a NICU nurse, and I kind of had this expectation that I should know what I was doing because I would help moms all the time. And I was really hard on myself about it because I just felt like it was this natural thing that should have been happening naturally, and it just wasn't. And I felt like maybe I was broken or something was wrong. So I started going to these support groups here that was ran by one of our local hospitals. And one of the lactation consultants there, she was so supportive and reassured me. And really, honestly, I attribute just like my motherhood journey and success through that in the first year to her. And I don't even know if she knows it to this day, but really there's so much as a new mom that you doubt. You're constantly living in this state of fear and doubt and shame, and really just having that support to know what's normal, what is outside of normal, and then just those little things to kind of help to make it better. So I realized at that moment the importance of having that support and community and really helping to reach my breastfeeding goals. And so I kind of transitioned all of the things I learned from these breastfeeding support groups back into my nursing career, and I'm helping these moms. And one of the lactation consultants in our unit, she came to me and she said, "You really have this gift. Do you think you would want to do this?" And I was like, "Really? Wow." I mean, it meant a lot. When somebody takes the time to really identify a strength within somebody, we all kind of are our own self critics, that just having that belief from somebody else gave me the confidence to kind of move forward through my journey. So I started looking into how to become an IBCLC, and it's a really rigorous process. It's 90 hours of clinical work and then 1,000 clinical hours on top of my already, at that time, it was about 8-year nursing career. So I went forward and I just set big goals and I did it. And then I was working as a lactation consultant on the unit in the NICU, and I just loved it. So then fast forward, COVID hit 2020, October, or it was April, or spring, yeah, spring 2020. And they pulled all of the lactation support from the hospitals in the area. I mean, no outpatient support whatsoever, just pull from out from under the rug. And I was like, but there's still moms having babies, and what are they doing? They need help. So I went to our clinical director and I said, is there any way that I could maybe do this on the side? I love my job working at the hospital and I love the babies, but there's this need and I'd like to help. And they got back to me and they said, "No, unfortunately not. There's not any funding for that, and the liability and, yada, yada." So I kind of sat on it for a while and I said, well, shoot, I can't take no for an answer. Is there a way I could maybe do this in addition to and do both, but I would have my own business rather than be a representative of the hospital? And so I came back to them and I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. And they said, yeah, we don't have any good reasons to not support you in this because we aren't offering anything. So yeah, please do something. So I'm like, okay, great. So that's when I launched the Modern Way Lactation Consulting, was in October of 2020. So I offer in-home and virtual lactation consults, and it's just been this amazing, beautiful journey. I do still work part-time at the hospital because I really have this like strong passion for NICU babies. I just love them and their families. So I'm able to do both, and it just all works together beautifully. So that's the long story of it all.
No, that's awesome though. I think it's really great to hear your story, like how you like persevered and like you had this such a calling to like help nursing mamas and just figure that out, and like how even in 2020 like you had a blessing, like you had a business come out of this and you're able to help like these new moms. So thank you. I think everyone will love hearing your story. So thank you for sharing it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I had come up with a few questions just to ask you since I am a nursing mom myself. So things like I had struggled with too. So my first question is, what do you have for tips on just in general, like latch? That's like such a big issue for mamas with a newborn. Like, how do they do it? What position? Like, how do you know your baby has a good latch? Yeah, I would just love to hear your basic tips on that.
Yeah. So that is something that comes up all the time, especially being a first time mom. But I'll also be really honest that it's not always first time moms. And I just want to kind of like bring that to the forefront to know that if you've breastfed before and you're feeling these challenges, there's again nothing wrong with you. It's just that every baby is different, their anatomy is different depending on the age that you were when you had your first or second or previous children. That all plays into play, and also your birth history and pregnancy, all of and current living circumstances, all of these things really do impact breastfeeding. And it's so much more. I always say it's so much more than just feeding your baby. Of course, that's a huge component of it, but there's such this emotional and mental and physical part of it as well. So things to really support latch or just to set you up for success is in the beginning, the best newborn positions are going to be cross cradle. So that's where you're kind of holding with the opposite arm of the opposite breast and really supporting the baby's head, making sure the baby isn't too far forward, making sure you line up nose to nipple. Nose to nipple. So I always say tummy to tummy, nose to nipple, because really it's important that the baby's chin is really tucked into the breast and then the upper jaw comes over. That's a really common misconception or thing that's not done properly in the beginning. Also making sure you have supportive items around you. So your breastfeeding pillows, lots of pillows in the beginning, because you really want to support your body mechanics in the best way so that you're not leaned over like this, because if you're uncomfortable, your baby's going to pick up on that too. And I always say, like, mamas, I'm convinced we would all stand on our head upside down in the pretzel position to feed our babies if that's what it required. Thankfully, it doesn't. But really, you don't have to do that. Like, you get to be comfortable too. And when you're comfortable, your body relaxes and lets your milk down better anyway. Also, really focusing on baby opening up their mouth wide. So a lot of babies like to kind of like slurp the nipple in, and that's going to create a lot of pain on that shallow. They'll kind of compress. So we really want to make sure that their mouth is nice and wide when they go to take a big mouthful of breast tissue. And following the baby's cues, you know, in the beginning, sometimes we have to do more of this mother-led feeding where we have to wake up the baby to encourage them to feed because they're sleepy or they've got low blood sugar issues or they're getting a little more dehydrated. So in the beginning, sometimes we do have to follow more of a schedule. Eventually, we want to transition to more of that baby-led feeding, that cue-based feeding. And babies will always feed better when they're hungry and it's their idea. So really getting in tune of those early feeding cues, like some of the first signs are going to be just a little wiggle, you know, when they're wiggling around or stretching or yawning, opening their mouth, doing that rooting reflex or sucking on their fists. You know, I always say crying is the last stage, last hunger cue. So don't wait for crying. Try to catch your baby before that.
Yeah, no, thank you. I love, thank you for all this info. And I was laughing about the pillows because my husband will always be like, why do you have so many pillows on the bed? It's like, well, I was nursing mama, so I needed them. It's, there's a reason for them, right? Or I know you, or like I had the boppy, like the awesome, like breastfeeding type pillows too. So, so important about just like us being comfortable so the baby's also comfortable. I never like put it together that way too. So, yeah, thank you for all such good tips. My next question is about like milk supply. I know that's probably another big one. Like if you have too much or too little, how do you cope with that? Or again, is it a position thing or what do you think with that?
Yeah. So, hot topic everywhere on social media. I kid you not. They're talking about, ways to increase your milk supply and signs that you have a low milk supply. So, first, you want to address, is it actual or is it perceived?
Mm.
So, and that can be a difficult thing to differentiate between. So, you really want to, if you're concerned, some concerns of a low milk supply, although they could be other issues too, would be poor weight gain, for your baby, inadequate wet and poopy diapers, maybe a baby who's not seeming satiated after feeds, like, is crying all the time, or just acting hungry. Those all are signs, and you would want to work with a lactation consultant to kind of get to the bottom of what's exactly going on. So let's talk about, actual low milk supply. So some things you can do to help that. There's a whole variety. I'm not going to talk too much because it's really customizable depending on what the situation is. So again, working closely with a lactation consultant to kind of work on get to the root of the problem, and then we can work on supporting your milk supply and increasing it. One thing I want to talk about: oversupply. Lots of moms think that they should have this freezer stash, right? Like, just feed the freezer, have so much milk, you don't even know what to do. And I remember as a new mom feeling like, oh my goodness, like what if something happens to me? We have these thoughts as moms, and we all do. And some of them are logical and some not so much, but they just are what they are. So anyway, recognizing if you're going to go back to work, of course you want to have a little bit of a stash, but in reality, you really only need enough to kind of get through 1 to 3 days. So sort of like think about how much your baby will need for 1 to 3 days while you're at work. But remember, you're replenishing that while you're gone. So the idea then would be that you would kind of replenish what you took. So you don't need this huge supply. And the biggest thing that I'd love to pass along is don't start pumping within the first 2 weeks of postpartum, because you can really create this oversupply. Now, that being said, if your baby is requiring any kind of supplementation with bottle or other means, by all means do pump. But if your baby is exclusively breastfeeding, you should wait to start pumping until 2 weeks. And then also wait on using the Haka. So the Haka has become this very like cliche, it looks really innocent and benign, but it's not. It can actually create a lot of oversupply issues. And oversupply is not a good thing. It actually comes with its own really difficult, unique challenges. So it's not something you want to aspire to have. And then if you do have this oversupply, there are ways we can kind of help to down regulate that. If you've kind of done all of that pumping and now you find you have this abundant oversupply, you would want to work with a lactation consultant then to help you get back down, because there are certain things we can do to help with that.
Yeah, I really love how you're saying, I mean, obviously, yes, hopefully if people like have big questions, they can either reach out to you or find like a local lactation consultant for them. But I like you're saying about supply, like get to the root cause, because it might not be what you're saying. Like it could be a different issue, not actually supply. So I think that's such a good reminder, because like you're saying, as a mom, we can be like, oh no, is it this? Is it that? I need to have enough like milk for years. Like just so we get these like anxious thoughts about like what we're doing and if we're doing it right. So I really love just how you explain everything in your approach. I think it's very, very helpful and just natural. So I really appreciate all of this great info, and I wish I met you when I first had my baby now. Okay, so my last question for you is about like discomfort, especially, right, whether you're a new mom or it's another baby and it's just when you first start. I remember for me, like I had like the engorgement. I know other moms, it's like nipple discomfort, like some of that, just like if you're really wanting to breastfeed, I know that can be a reason some moms like don't continue to because it's so like painful. Just what are your tips on that? Or again, like what is the true cause? Is that back to latch, or is it really just, kind of tough through it because the first few days can be tough?
Yeah. So, sore nipples comes with, it's kind of a like a loaded concept. And like you described, really addressing what is the issue. I won't even get to, tongue and lip ties. That's a whole nother thing. And there are specific lactation consultants who have more knowledge in that area. I've received extra training in regards to the tethered oral ties. Not all lactation consultants are as familiar with them. It's not kind of a baseline knowledge. So make sure that if you are working with a lactation consultant and you're concerned for a tie, it's one who has received specialty training, because that would be a scenario that may cause sore nipples. Now, a lot of times sore nipples can just be simply the way the baby's positioned. I really like football position. Again, I mentioned cross cradle, but football's really helpful in the beginning as well because babies' jaws, they've been in utero, they've been cramped up in tiny little spaces for a long time, and there's lots of tightness in there. And so when they go to latch, they can't really open their mouth wide because it's just like, oh, they're like crickety crick, like old people, like, oh, like you can't, you got a stiff neck. And so, and it could be torticollis, it could be all of these things. So I like football position because if the baby's positioned properly, which should be all the way back here, again, line up nose to nipple. I always see football way too far forward, make sure the baby's far enough back. And they're able to kind of get their chin in tucked a little bit deeper. So try different positions and see if that's more comfortable. Again, too, if a baby's kind of been injuring one area by doing different positions, you kind of put point of injury in a different location. So that's kind of sore nipples. And then I always say like the latch ouch. So the latch ouch is fairly normal in the beginning. If you go 1,000, 2, 1,000, you count up to 5 and then it resolves. It's most likely a latch ouch. And that's just kind of the nipples sort of like toughening up, especially if you're a first time mom, you've never done it before. If it goes beyond that 5 seconds, then you want to unlatch and relatch. And then kind of demand, like I was talking about before, demand those good behaviors because we're creating brain pathways here in the baby's brain that we want them to learn the right things to do. Engorgement, so is a physiologic process. It usually happens by, on day 2 to 4 for most moms. And again, it's actually like an inflammatory process. So it's the milk ducts kind of like inflamed and swelling for preparation for the milk to come in. And it can be really uncomfortable, kind of painful, firm, hard breasts. So ice packs work great right after feeding because of that inflammation, we want to kind of decrease inflammation. So the ice can be helpful, but know that it really should resolve within 24 hours if it's true physiologic engorgement. If it goes beyond that, then you would want to reach out to a lactation consultant because it could be more pathological.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, these are all, everything you're sharing. It's very, very helpful. And yeah, thanks for the tips on any discomfort for first time moms or moms who are nursing again, like future babies. Is there anything else like you would want to add? Or I know you covered so much info, so.
Yeah, I think it's just trusting your mama gut. If you feel like something is off or isn't working well, don't be afraid to seek extra help, even if a provider's telling you, no, everything's fine. If something's telling you, no, it's maybe not, like listen to that. Our mama instincts, they are the most powerful thing on this earth. And it's just sometimes takes kind of finding the right people to get in your corner to get down to what's really going on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. I feel like that's always like so many women and moms I talk to, that's always such a common theme of like, we're afraid to ask for help or afraid to reach out. But I mean, obviously in the end, like speaking with someone like you who is so gifted in this area, like it would be so helpful and such a blessing. So like not shameful to be asking for help. But yeah, thank you for all of this. And if anyone wants to just like follow you to get more info, or if they want to personally reach out to you for further help, where can they find you or follow you?
Yeah, so the Modern Way Lactation Consulting. I have a page on Facebook. I've got a page on Instagram. You can visit my website at www.themodernwaylactation.com. And on my website, I do have insurance approval form you can fill out. So I do accept some insurances as well. And I do virtual consults and, you know, everything from breastfeeding to relactation to oral ties, to weaning a baby, to increasing milk supply, pumping, all of that. NICU baby, that's all my areas of expertise.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can, once we're done here, I can just, I could tag your page too so people can easily go find it too. So yeah, well, thank you so much, Kaely, and I hope all you mamas out there found this information helpful, but have a nice Monday.
Yeah, thanks so much. Okay, bye.
Bye.